The water wheel hasn't turned in 20 years. The mill has been silent, frozen, covered in dust that only the wind moves. But when 15-year-old Iris Cole pushes open that door, when her trembling hands find the journals her great-grandfather left behind, everything changes. Plans, dozens of them. Not just for grinding grain, but for building a center that could bring an entire dying mountain community back to life. She walks to the wheel. Her fingers touch the ancient wood, rough and cold. And for the first time in 2 decades, the silence breaks. The wheel groans. It moves. And something inside her starts turning too. Not just hope, purpose. A whole new life beginning. Some things don't die. They just wait for the right hands to wake them up. Iris's story starts the way a lot of mountain kids' stories start, with family that falls apart and leaves you picking up pieces you're too young to carry. Her mother left when Iris was 7, just walked out one morning for cigarettes and never came back. Her father tried for 3 years after that, working double shifts at the lumber mill. But the drinking got worse and the trying got less, until Child Services stepped in and Iris went to live with Grandma Cora in the old farmhouse, 2 ridges over from where the mill stood. Cora was 72 then, tough as hickory bark, with hands that never stopped moving, and a mind sharp as the knives she used to butcher chickens. She'd grown up in these mountains when they were thriving, when the mill ran 6 days a week and farms covered every flat piece of land, and you could make a living if you worked hard and knew the land. She taught Iris everything: how to garden, can, preserve, how to fix things with wire and stubbornness, how to read weather in the trees and water, how to be self-sufficient, because depending on people always ends in disappointment. But Cora also taught her about beauty, about finding it in small things, wildflowers in spring, the way morning light hit the creek, the satisfying click of a properly sealed jar. She taught Iris that work and art weren't separate things, that you could make something useful and beautiful at the same time. That legacy wasn't about money or status. It was about what you left behind that helped others. They had 5 good years together. Then Cora's heart started failing. The doctors said bypass surgery might help, but Cora refused. "I'm 77 years old, Iris. I've lived every day I wanted to live. I'm not spending my last months in hospitals." She died at home in October, in her own bed, with Iris holding her hand, and her last words were, "The mill, Iris. Don't let them tear it down. There's something there. I never figured out what, but you will." The funeral was small. 20 people from the mountain community, most of them old-timers who remembered when things were different. They brought casseroles and sympathy, and then went back to their own slow decline. The social worker came the next week with paperwork. Iris was 15, too young to live alone, especially in a house with a mortgage Cora had been barely managing. Foster care was the only option. Iris spent 6 months in a foster home 40 miles away in the valley. Nice people, a couple in their 50s, whose own kids had grown and moved away. They meant well, but it wasn't home. She finished her sophomore year at a school where she knew no one, where kids had smartphones and talked about colleges, and didn't understand what it meant to grow up in the mountains with nothing. She counted days until she turned 16, until she could legally drop out and make her own choices, however bad they might be. Then the lawyer called. Cora's estate had finally cleared probate. The house had to be sold to pay debts, but the mill property, which Cora had owned outright, went to Iris. 15 acres and a derelict building. The lawyer suggested selling it, said she might get $20,000 for the land alone. Enough for a few years of living expenses. Iris took a bus back to the mountains the next day. She walked the 3 miles from the road to the mill, her backpack containing everything she owned, and stood in the clearing, looking at the old stone building. And she knew this was it, her chance, her only chance. The mill is bigger than she remembered from the one time Cora brought her here as a kid. 2 stories of stacked stone, walls 3 feet thick, built to last centuries. The wooden roof is mostly intact, a few holes letting in light and weather, but repairable. The water wheel on the side is massive, 20 feet across, half its paddles rotted away. The creek rushes past, cold and clear, fed by springs higher up the mountain. She forces open the door, the hinges screaming with rust. Inside is cavern dark and smells of mildew and animal droppings. She uses her phone flashlight to navigate, the battery at 30%, no way to charge it out here. The main room is huge, 30 feet by 40 feet, dominated by the millstone in the center, a massive circular slab of granite, 6 feet across. Wooden mechanisms surround it, gears and belts and pulleys, all frozen with rust and rot. The second floor is accessible by a ladder, half the rungs broken. But she climbs carefully and finds storage space, still full of old burlap sacks and wooden barrels. But it's in the corner of the second floor, behind a pile of collapsed shelving, that she finds it. A wooden chest, 2 feet by 3 feet, locked with a rusted padlock. She tries to open it, can't. Takes it back down to the main floor where there's more light. Uses a rock to smash the lock, and the chest opens. Inside are journals, dozens of them, dating back 70 years. Her great-grandfather's journals, documenting everything about running the mill. But more than that, documenting something else. A vision. Plans for what the mill could become. Not just a grain mill, but a community center. A place where people could gather, trade, learn. Sketches show the main floor converted to a market space. The second floor as a teaching area. The water wheel restored and connected to generators, providing power. Notes talk about bringing the community back together, about self-sufficiency, about fighting against the decline by building something new from something old. Iris sits on the dusty floor, reading by afternoon light streaming through holes in the roof, and feels something ignite in her chest. This is it. This is what Cora meant. This is the secret. Not buried treasure or hidden money, but a vision, a blueprint for what she could build here. That night, sleeping in her sleeping bag, on the cleanest part of the floor she could sweep, Iris makes a plan. It's crazy. She's 16, broke, knows nothing about construction or business or community organizing. But she also knows she has nothing to lose. She's either going to try this and fail spectacularly, or she's going to succeed and build something that matters. Either way, it's better than going back. The work begins the next morning. She starts with cleaning, the most basic but necessary first step. Using a broom she found and water hauled from the creek, she begins sweeping decades of accumulated dirt, droppings, and decay. It's disgusting work. She finds dead birds, mice nests, inches of dust that make her cough constantly. But slowly, over 3 days of relentless work, the main floor starts to reveal itself. The stone floor underneath is intact, beautiful even, worn smooth by a century of footsteps. The walls are solid, no structural cracks. The wooden beams supporting the second floor are chestnut, old growth, nearly indestructible. She finds treasures as she cleans. Old tools, still usable with some work. Mason jars, unbroken. A hand-crank drill. Lengths of rope. Nails in glass jars. The accumulated detritus of a working mill, abandoned but not destroyed. She sorts everything, creates organized piles, begins to see potential in what others saw as junk. Water is the first major challenge. The mill has access to the creek, but no running water inside. She rigs a basic system using salvaged gutters to catch roof runoff into barrels. It's not clean enough to drink without boiling, but it's enough for washing. She bathes in the creek, the water ice cold even in late April, and learns to move fast to avoid hypothermia. Food is the second challenge. She has $40 left from the bus trip and odd jobs. She spends 30 of it on rice, beans, oatmeal, and peanut butter at the dollar store in town. Bulk calories, nothing fancy. She sets snares for rabbits using techniques Cora taught her. Catches one every few days. Fishes in the creek with a line and hooks she found. Between that and wild edibles, dandelion greens and ramps, and watercress, she survives. Barely, but survives. The community starts to notice. Old Mr. Hackett, who lives a mile down the mountain and knew Cora, stops by one morning. "I saw smoke from your fire, thought maybe squatters, didn't expect to find Cora's granddaughter." He looks around at what she's done, the cleaned floor, the organized piles, and nods slowly. "You're serious about this?" She just says, "Yes, sir." He leaves and comes back that afternoon with a propane camp stove and 2 full tanks. "Cora helped me when my wife was sick. This is me paying it forward." Word spreads. People start showing up. Mrs. Chun brings vegetables from her garden. The hardware store owner, Mr. Briggs, brings damaged lumber he can't sell. A younger guy, maybe mid-20s, named Jake, who does construction, stops by and looks at the roof. "You're gonna need help with this. I got weekends free." She has no money to pay him, says so directly. He shrugs. "I'm not asking for money. This mill was important once. Be good to see it important again." By June, she's not working alone anymore. Jake brings his tools and spends Saturdays repairing the roof, teaching Iris how to replace boards, patch holes, seal gaps. Mrs. Chun brings her teenage daughter Amy to help clean the second floor. Mr. Hackett donates an old generator and helps set up basic electricity. Running off gasoline she buys with money from selling rabbit pelts in town. The mill slowly transforms from abandoned ruin to functional space. But the real breakthrough comes when Iris finds the millstone can still turn. The mechanism's rusted solid, but Jake brings penetrating oil, and they work on it for 2 weeks, freeing seized gears. The water wheel needs major repair, half the paddles replaced, but the main shaft is solid iron, intact. They scavenge lumber from old barns, cut new paddles, mount them. And one morning in early July, they open the sluice gate and redirect creek water onto the wheel. It turns. Slowed first, groaning, but it turns. The millstone begins to rotate, and everyone's standing there. Iris and Jake and Mr. Hackett and Mrs. Chun and 4 others who've become regulars, they cheer. Because it's not just a wheel turning. It's proof that old things can work again. That what's abandoned isn't dead. Iris takes the momentum and pushes forward. She uses social media, something Cora never understood, but Iris knows instinctively. She creates an Instagram account, posts photos of the mill's transformation. The cleaned stones, the turning water wheel, the view of the mountains from the second floor. She tells the story. Short captions about rebuilding, about community, about creating something from nothing. People respond. Not thousands. She's not viral, but locals start following. People from neighboring communities. A few from further away who grew up in these mountains and moved to cities but still remember. She announces a plan. The mill will host a market, last Saturday of every month, starting in August. Vendors welcome. No booth fee, just Bring what you make or grow and trade or sell. Community gathering. All are welcome. It's ambitious considering she's barely got electricity and no running water yet, but she's learned that momentum matters. You announce big, then scramble to make it happen. The scramble is real. They have 6 weeks. Jake brings in friends, and suddenly there's a crew of 5 people working weekends. They build tables from salvaged lumber, set up the second floor with chairs pulled from people's barns, install a composting toilet, basic but functional, run the generator to power lights strung on wires, clean the area around the mill, cutting back brush, making a parking area where the old wagon road widens. 2 weeks before the market, reality hits Iris hard. She's spent everything. The generator needs gas, which costs money. She needs to advertise somehow, print flyers at least. She's hungry constantly, surviving on minimal food. And the foster services have tracked her down. A social worker shows up one afternoon, a different one than before, younger, sympathetic but firm. Iris, you can't live here. You're a minor. There's no legal guardian. You need to come back. Iris refuses. The social worker says she'll have to involve the sheriff if Iris doesn't comply voluntarily. That night, sitting alone in the mill with a small fire for comfort, Iris considers giving up. It's too hard. She's too young. She doesn't have the resources or knowledge or support to make this work. Tomorrow she could pack up, go back, finish high school in some foster home, go to community college, get a normal job, safe, predictable, dead inside. She pulls out her great-grandfather's journals, reads again the passages about vision and perseverance. One entry, dated 1963, stands out. The mill flooded today. Lost a week of grain and 2 customers are threatening to go elsewhere. I could quit, pack it up, move to the city like everyone else, but then what would be left here? Who would serve this community? Sometimes you don't keep going because it's easy or profitable. You keep going because it matters, because someone has to. Iris doesn't sleep that night. At dawn she hikes down to town. She goes to the weekly farmers market, not to buy but to talk. She finds vendors, local people selling vegetables and honey and crafts, and she pitches them. There's a space, a beautiful old mill. It could be a gathering place. Monthly markets, no fees, community-focused. We could build something together. Most say no, or maybe, but 3 say yes immediately. An older woman who makes soap, a young couple growing organic vegetables, a beekeeper who knew Cora. 3 vendors is enough for a start. She goes to the local weekly newspaper, just a small office with 1 reporter and an editor. She tells them the story. Girl inherits mill, rebuilds it, creating community space. First market in 3 weeks. The editor, a woman in her 60s, listens and nods. I remember when that mill ran. I was a girl. My father took our corn there. I'll run a story. Front page next week. No charge, the story runs. And something unexpected happens. People respond. Not just locals, but people from surrounding counties who've been watching small mountain communities die and want to see something succeed. Donations start arriving. $20 here, $50 there, dropped off at the mill, in envelopes or handed to Iris in town. A church group brings lumber and offers to build proper market stalls. A retired electrician donates solar panels, old but functional, and installs them on the roof. I've been looking for a project, he says. This is it. By the week before the market, the mill is transformed. The main floor is clean, organized, with 6 sturdy market stalls built along the walls. The second floor has seating for 30 people. The water wheel turns constantly, connected now to a small generator that charges battery banks for lights. There's running water, cold only, piped from the creek through a filter system Jake designed. The composting toilet works. Outside, the parking area is graded and graveled. Signs point from the main road. The night before the market, Iris walks through the space alone. 6 months ago, she was in foster care, drifting, purposeless. Now she's 16, living in a mill she rebuilt, about to host an event that might succeed or fail spectacularly. She should be terrified. Instead, she feels calm, because whatever happens tomorrow, she's proven something. That young people aren't powerless. That abandoned places can live again. That community isn't dead. It just needs someone stubborn enough to call it back together. Market day arrives. Iris is up before dawn, setting up, arranging tables, checking every detail. The 3 committed vendors arrive early. Then 2 more show up unexpectedly, a woodworker and a woman selling baked goods. By 9 in the morning, when the market officially opens, there are 8 vendors set up. The first customers arrive at 9:15. Mr. Hackett and his wife, then Mrs. Churn with her extended family. Then people Iris doesn't know, drawn by the newspaper story or word of mouth. By 10 there are 30 people browsing, buying, talking. By 11 there are 50. The vendors are selling. Not huge volumes, but steady. More importantly, people are staying. Sitting upstairs, drinking free coffee, Iris made in massive pots, on the camp stove, talking, reconnecting. An older man, maybe 70, approaches Iris. He's crying. "I worked here," he says. 1958 to 62. I ran the millstone. My daddy worked here before me. I thought I'd never see this place alive again. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it back. Iris doesn't know what to say, so she just hugs him, and he hugs back, and she understands in that moment why this matters. The market runs until 3. By the end, every vendor has made sales. The soap maker sold out completely. The vegetable growers took orders for next market. People ask Iris, "Will you do this monthly?" She says yes, already committed. They say, "What about other events? Could we do workshops here? Music? Community dinners?" She says yes to all of it, figuring out logistics later. When everyone's gone and she's cleaning up, Jake helps her count. 8 vendors, roughly 200 visitors over 6 hours. Maybe $3,000 in total sales. None of it hers, but all of it circulating in the local economy. More importantly, proof of concept. The mill works as a gathering space. The community wants this, but the real surprise comes 2 days later. The social worker returns, the same one who threatened to involve the sheriff. She walks through the mill, sees what Iris has built, talks to people in town, and then sits down with Iris for a conversation. "This is highly unusual," she says. "You're a minor, living alone in a building that's not up to code for residential use. Technically, I should remove you. But I've talked to people. Mr. Hackett has agreed to be your legal guardian. It's temporary until you're 18. You can keep living here, keep doing this, as long as there's adult oversight. Do you accept?" Iris accepts before she's even finished asking. Fall brings changes. The monthly market becomes established. Attendance grows each month. 15 vendors by October, 300 visitors. People start calling it the mill market, and it becomes a destination. Regional media picks up the story. Young girl rebuilds historic mill, creates thriving community space. Iris does interviews. Uncomfortable at first, but learning to tell the story effectively. Money flows differently now. She charges a small fee for workshops, locals teaching skills like canning, woodworking, basket weaving. Not enough to get rich, but enough to cover expenses and pay for repairs. A GoFundMe someone set up without her knowledge raises $15,000. She uses it to install a proper bathroom, upgrade the kitchen area, weatherproof the building for winter. But more important than money is what's happening socially. The mill becomes a hub. Teenagers who'd been leaving the mountains for cities start asking questions. Could I start a business here? Could this work as a life? Young families who'd been struggling in isolation find community. Older folks who'd been forgotten find purpose again. The mill hosts dinners, concerts, meetings, celebrations. It becomes what her great-grandfather envisioned, a center that holds things together. Iris turns 17 in November. The community throws her a birthday party at the mill, 200 people showing up with food and music and gifts. She stands on the second floor, looking down at the crowded space. The millstone in the center, turning slowly from water power, lights strung overhead, people laughing and eating and connected, and she thinks about Cora's last words. The mill, Iris. There's something there. She'd found it. Not hidden treasure, but something more valuable. A blueprint for how to build a life that matters. Winter tests everything. The creek freezes partially, slowing the water wheel. Heat is a constant challenge, the stone building holding cold like a refrigerator. But Jake helps install a wood stove, efficient and powerful, and Iris becomes expert at fire management. The monthly market continues through December and January, smaller but persistent. She learns that consistency matters, that showing up even when it's hard builds trust. By spring, a year after she first walked to the mill with everything in a backpack, the transformation is complete. The mill is fully functional, hosting markets, workshops, gatherings. It's generating enough income to sustain itself. 15 part-time jobs have been created, people running stalls or teaching classes or helping with maintenance. The community has measurably changed. Youth outmigration slowing, new businesses starting, hope replacing resignation. But for Iris, the most important change is internal. She's not the lost foster kid anymore. She's Iris Cole, the girl who rebuilt the mill. The girl who proved that you don't need money or age or permission to make change. You just need vision, stubbornness, and the willingness to start even when failure is likely. She's 17, legally independent now, running a community center that serves hundreds of people monthly. She's exhausted, constantly, stressed about money and responsibility and the weight of expectations, but she's also alive in a way she never was before. Purpose does that. Legacy does that. One evening in April, exactly a year after she first arrived, she sits by the water wheel with the journals open beside her. She's started her own journal now, documenting everything for whomever comes after. She writes, to anyone reading this in the future, buildings don't matter. The stones, the wheel, the structure, those can all fall eventually. What matters is the idea that abandoned things can live again, that young people have power. That community isn't something that happens to you, it's something you build. This mill was dead for 20 years. Now it's alive. Keep it that way. Keep building, keep believing, keep fighting against the idea that decline is inevitable. It's not. Resurrection is always possible. I proved it. You can too. The water wheel turns behind her, steady and strong, and Iris smiles. If this story of rebuilding and community sparked something in you, hit that subscribe button now. Turn on notifications so you never miss these stories about mountain resilience and young people refusing to accept that things have to die. Leave a comment and tell me what abandoned place in your community could be brought back. What would you build if you had the courage? And share this video with someone who needs to know that age is just a number, that vision matters more than resources, and that one person with a plan can change everything. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next story.